Phillies top prospects time here on the call up. Aram Leighton, Jack McMullen. We are fitting in a couple more team top prospect lists before the top 100 update. And the Phillies, I promised you this like a week ago, so I apologize for the delay. But honestly, some new names. We have one of the top international free agents from the J15 cycle that I actually was able to get video on. So I'm excited to talk a little bit about Renteria. Also, just some risers in this system that I think are intriguing. Some other just irons in the fire, I think, that are interesting for the big league side of things. Aidan Miller, of course, a guy that could be in the equation for the big league team this coming year. I really wanted to do like a clean slate reassess of Andrew Painter's season. Had a little bit more time to do that. So there's a lot of fun things to talk about with this Philly system. It's probably, and I'll save the question for you, Jack, at the end, because I know once we talk through it all, I want to ask you, like, where do you feel like this system stacks up? Because I feel like we can more properly answer it once we go through everybody here.
Yeah.
But I feel very geared up to say middle of the pack. But that said, when you have three players, really, because also another guy that can help you at the big league level, and Justin Crawford, when your three best prospects are all upper minors guys and you're a win now team that probably had a little bit of a disappointing offseason, the farm system is set up nicely to potentially help the Phillies this year and beyond.
I'll let you know if I recalibrate by the end, but I'm totally with you. They scream middle of the pack farm system, and they do it in a different way. Typically, the 12 to 18 ranked farm systems in baseball are the ones that are decent at the top, but also decent at the bottom. And it just seems like you're spread out with solid guys. This is more Padres of yesteryear, middle of the pack, where you've got 3 or 4 or 5 guys that are awesome. And then 15 is like, can we really get there right now? There's intrigue at 15, but it's a top-heavy, front-loaded, middle-of-the-pack farm system, which is what I have right now. The other thing that jumped out to me when looking at this farm system, if you're trying to go to a World Series game at Citizens Bank Park, do not wait until 2032. They're clearly just pushing for right now. Yeah. They're going to get it done in 26, 27, 28. The duration of Schwarber's deal for me is kind of the window, because at that point you would have Crawford, Painter, and Miller all entering arbitration. Everybody else is 37 years old. So this is their last gasp at World Series contention, it seems like, for the next few years.
And it sounds crazy, but I think especially, and we'll talk more about off seasons, on the Just Baseball show, but especially with the off season that they had, I think there's a lot more importance now on these three guys at the top, who we'll talk about later in the episode. It doesn't necessarily mean reaching their ceiling, but getting to their 70th percentile outcome or 80th percentile outcome to be able to help this team short-term, long-term. And also that's the best way to keep the payroll down a little bit, is when you have controllable talent at multiple premium spots, which they could very easily have here.
I was going to say, so, how many GMs and lead decision makers have we heard this offseason say their perfect fit is not out there in this free agent class? Yeah. That is the case with a lot of other teams. But it seems like Dave Dombrowski, he's been operating with these three in mind. Like, he's been thinking, okay, we probably don't need Bader because Crawford's here. Okay, we can probably get away with no Bichette because Miller's pretty much here. Okay, we don't need Imai, or we don't need to bring back Ranger because Painter's here. So it just seems like he spent the entire winter thinking about those three and how they factor in.
Which we'll see how that goes, but I'm excited to talk about those three again at the end of the episode, because they each do have the potential to fill those needs. We'll start with the names to watch. Wenhui Pan is the first name we're going to talk about here. Right-hander, he's a relief prospect, but in terms of stuff, and we talked about it, like when you get to the back end of the top 15 here, it's a lot of depth type of arms. So I like Pan a lot as a guy that could be a riser in this system. $350,000 IFA guy in 23, was effective in his pro debut, but then had a broken pinky, and then Tommy John. So we haven't seen him since the middle of 24, and the sample is not huge, but when we have seen him on the mound across parts of 2 seasons, it's a 574 OPS against, 32% strikeout rate, 8.5% walk rate. Fastball sits at 95 to 97. He's going to be a big league reliever barring health. A guy that will be a big league reliever on opening day is a friend of the program, Zach McCambly. I'm so pumped for McCambly. We've talked about that. Awesome guy. He's overcome some pretty brutal injuries, not really arm related as much. Adductor, a really bad adductor injury in 24, came back in 25. I think was a big time beneficiary of the new and improved Marlins pitching development system, because McCambley had been there for multiple regimes, and his fastball was better. He ticked up, and I think that's more on the work ethic side. But the Marlins also helped him out a cutter, and I think that bridge cutter from his patented, sweepy slider really helped him cut into the fastball usage, because the fastball can get a little flat on him, and then also make that fastball more effective because he could change the eye levels now. It's a little bit more of a surprise. That sweeper has been one of the best pitches in the Marlins system for years now. It was just, what can we build around it? And that hard cutter and that fastball ticking up closer to the mid-90s was a huge part of that. I think he's going to stick in this Phillies bullpen, and I'm really excited for him. Yeah. Ramon Marquez had a really nice year between the complex and low A in 2025 at 19 years old. It's a 3-pitch mix. Fastball sits 93 to 95. It's a little bit flat, but he fills up the zone. It's an above-average changeup that he picked apart these inexperienced hitters with, and then a slider that looks like it can be decent as well. It'll just be interesting to see how he can build on that and how that stuff maybe translates against more challenging competition. Seth Johnson's an interesting player to try to figure out, because he did make the transition to the bullpen, but I really like him just as this swingman type. And I still think he's a little bit forgotten here, and it could be a guy that ends up picking up some, valuable innings through the dog days of the season this year for the Phillies. He transitioned to that bullpen role, and the command was the big question. 10 of his final 15 appearances in AAA, he did not give up a free pass, so that's a good sign. But when he didn't have the command, it would be multiple free passes being handed out, so that's the thing to monitor. The fastball's good, the slider's good. At worst, he's this up-and-down arm for you, but I still think can be a swingman. Romelly Espinoza, shortstop, $250,000 IFA signing in 2025. Turned in a pretty good DSL season in his pro debut. I think it's all about projection with this guy here, though. He's the ingredients to stick it short. Could be an above-average defender there, and then he's 6'3", 175 pounds. So plus wheels, good arm. If the offense can come around to even be decent, you've got tools and a lot to build on here, and I think the complex will be a fun test where if he passes it, you'll see him rise very quickly in this system. Carson DiMartini, really rough once he got to Double-A, but left-handed hitter, 4th-round pick, has a good chance to fill a kind of utility, maybe bench role, because he's an above-average defender at third base, maybe plus at third base, and can give you solid defense at short, but he's going to need to, improve offensively at the upper levels to get there. Yaniel Correa, really weird to be talking about him in this context. He's a guy that looked like a top 100 candidate at one point with the Rays. Shoulder issues really, affected him. He was acquired by the Phillies in a swap for Tommy McCullum in this offseason. When healthy, we saw him pitch to a 1.95 ERA in high A and Double-A in 119 innings in 2024. But as he dealt with that shoulder issue, the command kind of backed up. The stuff was kind of spotty, but I still think this is a guy that could be a really nasty relief arm. And when he's healthy, the fastball is 95 to 97 with a really flat approach angle that generates plenty of whiff. Anderson Araujo is an under the radar signing in the 2025 IFA class a year ago. Turned in a pretty good DSL debut. Could be a fine blend of average defense, good bat to ball, and maybe a little bit of power to dream on. Just a name to watch there. And then Keaton Anthony has maybe been one of the most underrated hitters in this system. Absolutely is raked since he was signed as an undrafted free agent in 2023, moved quickly through the minor leagues, and he's put up impressive numbers at each stop. There's not a ton that pops off the page there, but he has at least average raw pop and above average bat to ball. Hamstring issue limited him to just 82 games, but between Double-A and Triple-A, he had a 138 WRC plus.
Okay, so two guys that I want to expand on a little bit. Keaton Anthony is an interesting one because you mentioned, he has at least average pop at this point. It was only 6 homers in those 82 games, but he hit 323. Year before, in 103 games, he hit 327 with 8 homers. I just wonder, does he fit the Otto Kemp role moving forward or the Cody Clemens role moving forward? Because it feels like those guys may have a little bit more game power to them than a Keaton Anthony.
Yeah, and the hard part is like with Kemp, he's sneaky athlete, right? Like, so you're getting some value in that regard, but I think that's the limiting part with Anthony, and he would have probably been a top 15 guy if he could have a little bit more defensive versatility. So that's the question there. But I still think this is just a second division type of bat potentially that could end up hitting enough and slugging enough to be that first baseman on the bulk platoon side. but
Yeah.
I think he's going to need to get into a little bit more power. There's some underlying batted ball data points that, point towards him having more power in the tank. But that's going to be the last piece there.
The only other one, Yoniel Cure, you know what I just learned about him? Yoniel Corrette. That's how we say his name. Yoniel Corrette. Yeah,
Okay.
so it's not Yoniel, it's Yoniel, and then it's not Cure, it's Corrette.
Correct.
So
thank you.
I got to learn, man. This is kind of
thanks
homework
for correcting me.
Play.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's good though. Like, you're probably gonna have to learn it because he's gonna get up. He's gonna get to the show. It's gonna happen. I don't know what it's gonna look like, but the stuff is too good.
And that's what I was saying, man. Like, this is good homework for me entering NL East play, right? It's like, okay, I got to know Yoniel Corrette. So there we go.
Correct. Yoniel Corrette. But yeah, that could be a guy that if it all comes together, that's a leverage arm, man. It really is. It's a really flat VAA, and that's clearly something the Phillies are pursuing because their first round pick that we'll talk about, also his fastball is great because of how flat the vertical approach angle is. Cody Bowker is a very unique angle. And that's the other thing. They definitely have made it a case as they're trying to backlog and kind of fill up the depth of this organization pitching wise. A lot of middle round, like creative with the slot values to get a bunch of arms. And Bowker's an interesting one. Right-hander that really gets down there. And I think ultimately probably settles in as a reliever or swingman type. But I mean, he drops his arm to like low 3/4 and drops his back knee to where it's almost touching the ground as he throws. The result, a 4.4-foot release height. He throws pretty hard from that angle, like 92 to 93, touching 4 and 5 on occasion, like is gas when you're dropping down and throwing from there. And I think that pitch with the run and ride that he generates is going to allow like just the fastball to generate a good amount of whiff. There's a cutter off of that works pretty well, but I'm just skeptical of like, how can you really develop a full arsenal of secondaries from there? And that might be the question. Like the sweeper was just very all over the place, though there were some good, nuts and bolts to it, I guess. And then the changeup is just far off. So I think there's a world where Bowker's a decent reliever. He turned in some good results, in the SEC for Vanderbilt, I believe.
Yeah.
And the command is decent for how funky he is.
He's going to think about his 99 punch outs in his draft year forever because he was a punch out shy of 100 in his draft year at Vandy, which is really tough. I don't envy that spot, but I do envy the 99 case. There's a trend as it pertains to height with pitchers in the Phillies system, and it's funny because their best pitching prospect is 6'8", probably. They love their short pitchers.
Yeah, it's
they love guys that use their short, stocky frame to leverage and get to weird angles. And that's exactly what you just laid out.
Yeah. I think in their way, it's like, because some of these guys in the 3rd and 4th round, of Bowker was a 3rd round pick. It was, not some savings picks there to go a little bit higher and in other areas. And I think a lot of other teams' draft models are going to dock those shorter pitchers. And I think that's where they tried to maybe find a little market inefficiency there to try to just make up some ground when they're under slotting guys. Because that brings us into number 14, who's a little bit taller, a little bit bigger, but then 13 is a guy that fits what you were saying as well. Sean Youngerman. And Sean Youngerman was a 4th round pick. A little bit one-dimensional as well in terms of like his fastball is great. And it's this over-the-top, semi-short arm release that gets plus vert. And at 92 to 94, it is great riding life. And so that's what really allowed him to have success. But off of that, the changeup flashes above average, and he threw some that get like 15, 16 inches of vertical separation. You're like, holy crap. But then he throws some that are just firm. So I've seen changeups that look like it's almost plus, and then I've seen some that, just don't look great. And those two pitches working off of each other could be really effective. But it's going to be important for him to find the slider or some sort of third pitch. And it's really hard sometimes for the very over-the-top verti guys to be able to snap something off. So I'm interested to see what that may look like. But a ton of whiff on the fastball at the top. The changeup, when it is around the zone, did generate a good amount of whiff. I just don't know what kind of role that would be because fastball, changeup, righty, 90, maybe in the bullpen he ticks up a little bit and could be more effective. But I think this is a guy that you're trying to build an arsenal around and develop into a back end of the rotation starter with the fastball being a great starting point.
I was going to ask you level of confidence in this guy developing a breaking ball, because that delivery is kind of weird. And it's like, it's not shot putty, but he starts with the baseball like near his ear
Yeah.
and then it's over the top. It feels like it'd be so hard to get around the baseball and actually spin it. It feels like it could be, the change up or maybe the split works off the fastball. So then you're limiting your ceiling and you're probably not a starting pitcher. It's just going to be really interesting to see how it progresses over the next year or two.
Yeah, and that's what made could he find a splitter from that spot? Like, I don't know. It's maybe a 12-6 type of curveball is a little bit easier for him.
Sure.
It's difficult to figure out, and he was a tough player for me to rank here. But what I did like is he was so effective out of the bullpen. He was kind of in a swingman hybrid role for Oklahoma State. That and the stuff ticked up to like 95, and him at 95, he can go high fastball usage and just have barrels missing under consistently. So then you have the changeup working off of that, maybe a cutter that's a little bit harder, and it comes together enough. But it's going to be interesting to see his development and where things go. Another guy that's going to be fascinating to see the development of is Cade Obermuller, 5'11", 165. But he does squeeze out every ounce of that frame to, maximize his stuff. He gets above average extension somehow from that 5'11", 165-pound frame. And it's a funky delivery. It's like an inward twist, and then he uncorks into a 3/4 crossfire release. So you definitely aren't seeing the ball particularly well when you're facing him, especially if you're a lefty. I think that allows the fastball to be above average, and the characteristics also help. It's got some run and ride to it, plays pretty well at the top, but also gets a good amount of ground balls, which is a really unique combination there. The sweeper from that angle looks quite tough, and hitters did not handle it very well. I do wonder if it has enough teeth to generate the same results professionally, because the underlying whiff wasn't great, but it just seemed like nobody could really hit it. I'm curious if that's the angle that he creates or the sheer quality of the pitch, because if it's more angles, there's some question if that will translate to the same degree professionally. And then also the changeup that he'll mix in. He's a second-round pick. I don't think he got the full slot value. I'd have to double check there. Wasn't their second best arm that they took in this past draft. Yeah. But, I will say there is the fallback of this lefty funky reliever that I think could be very effective.
Yeah. I'm going to say this. The delivery is not to the elite extent of this guy that I'm going to comp it to, but it's incredibly Hader. It is very, very Josh Hader there with the inward twist, and you've got that lower arm angle, but in terms of the attack angle and like the finger and hand positioning, Hader is much better at that, at like riding the fastball up. But this guy, like, he creates that, small guy turns around and then works a lot rotationally and horizontally. There's just a lot of Hader going on in that. And Hader was a starting pitcher when he first, tried coming up.
Well, which is why when I look at him, I'm like, I almost just rather let him have it just eat. And, the fastball is 92, 93, but it's super high spin. And I also think there's some small tweaks that he could make to maybe have a little bit more spin efficiency and get some more ride to it. But if he's 94, 95 out of the pen with good ride, good run and ride, and then the sweeper is a little bit sharper because of that, with that funky delivery, I think that's a guy that could be a really, really effective left-handed reliever. And I think that ultimately is the best outlook, but why not? He's such a good athlete. Why not, start him or keep him as a starter and see what happens in the meantime. But I think that is the ultimate, most likely scenario.
Got you.
Griffin Burkholder checks in at number 12, and I've seen some, have him at like 30. I understand, because it was such a rough year. But remember, this is a guy that got like the same slot value as Dante Nori, because this really was the Phillies' kind of first-round pick in a lot of ways. They were really excited about him in 2024. And I just don't think we can just fully forget about that and how much buzz and excitement there was around him, given that Burkholder's a 70 grade runner. He could be an above average defender in center field, maybe a plus defender in a corner. There's above average power to dream on. He, even in very limited action last year, popped to 111. I think he hit a homer 111 miles per hour. He only played 34 games, hamstring issue, and then another injury that ended his season. There's definitely whiff. There's definitely a lot to work through offensively, but how are you going to draw that much from 34 games? And are we going to just totally override the entire perception on him based on 34 injured games? I just don't think that's entirely fair when, his nickname in the Phillies org is Captain America because he can do everything. And it doesn't mean he's going to hit. and that is the biggest and most important variable. But it does mean that he is worth a little bit of patience here as a very, very talented player who has just had one lost season.
I'm team preach patience with you, but I will ask you, when he was on the field for those 34 games, what is the most valid concern in your eyes?
Swing and miss.
It is? Okay. Yeah, I mean, he played 42 times and 145 plate appearances. So, yeah, that's like high 20s, 30?
30 on the dot.
30 on the dot.
But if you, because when he came back, they kind of eased him back in at the complex, and he was better there in terms of like swing and miss, but he wasn't very productive. And I think when you see 14 games of that kind of struggle at the complex, you think, but that was coming off of an injury and then also suffering another injury. So I just look at it like, what am I going to draw from two different injuries and a guy's pro debut? I almost just wipe the season out and say, let's see what he's got this year. Obviously, if he struggles again through the first half, yeah, he's going to sink, and we're in terms of the rankings, still has time in the grand scheme, but in terms of the rankings, yeah, he's going to sink. But when I have a chance at a 70 grade runner with above average power and above average defense, I'm still going to put, especially with some of the arms we just talked about, like, oh, he could be a reliever or like a depth arm or whatever. Give me the guy that could be, an above average regular at a premium position if it all goes right. And I know that's a big if, but I still think in the worst case can give you this kind of super, I almost want to say like super fourth outfielder type. That is, you keep waiting to see if there's more and it doesn't fully come, but Jake Marisnick had a long career.
He 100% did. It's also interesting, man, because like the Phillies, another trend that, seems to poke out in their organization is they don't really value the complex for their draft guys. It's usually enter fight or flight mode in Clearwater as soon as you can. Dante Nori, the year he was drafted, was in Clearwater. Burkholder, the year he was drafted, was in Clearwater. Aidan Miller, the year he was drafted, was in Clearwater. It's kind of interesting to see them say, you know what, skip that complex level, when I feel like even 2 or 3 weeks could be enough of a taste for those guys of complex and just get the confidence going.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm sure he'll go back to low A, but how quickly do they bump him to high A, and what kind of challenge will that be for him?
Yeah.
Number 11, Gene Cabrera. Cabrera is kind of that innings eater, depth arm type, but there might just be enough in there to be that number 5 starter if it all works out. Now, 2024 version of Gene Cabrera, I would say, looks like a 5 starter. 2025 Gene Cabrera is what I just said before that, which is maybe looks more like a 6 or 7 starter. The interesting thing with Cabrera is he had the year that he had in 24, gets added to the 40-man roster, and then the stuff just backed up a little bit this past year. The velocity was down a little bit, like a tick and change. And I felt like he was nibbling a little bit more as a result. You're not generating the same amount of whiff. You're going to start nibbling a little bit more. That said, the changeup is now, especially spending the whole year at Double-A, continue to perform as a plus pitch. The sweeper, he has enough confidence with command-wise to backdoor it to righties, or to lefties, excuse me. Obviously, it's effective to righties as a little bit of that equalizer, since you kind of wonder, if you're a changeup heavy guy, how do you keep righties at bay? That does help. But the fastball is not very good. And then the more traditional slider is not very good. But he just seems to avoid barrels enough. And even in a year where his stuff was diminished, it was a 3.81 ERA and 137 innings. And that's the biggest thing for me is this guy's built up. He's going to eat innings. And I think that's extremely valuable when we're comparing some of these other arms. Like Cabrera can get up there and just be able to spot start, fill in. And if the stuff ticks back up, could be that 5 starter for you when he's executing well.
I don't think any Phillies fan wanted to hear this going into 2026, but this guy might be a really big deal for them in 2026.
Yeah.
He might have to start some games. And there's this reliance on Taijuan Walker going into 2026. There's an uber reliance on Andrew Painter, obviously, but say something goes wrong. Say somebody gets hurt. Say Wheeler is behind in his recovery. Gene Cabrera could be starting games for the Philadelphia Phillies, and you need him to be solid and serviceable as a 5 starter. So him blossoming into that option A that you laid out is sneaky really important. When I think in October or November of this year, even December of 2025, we were saying, yeah, no, it's cool. He'll be in Lehigh Valley. No, like he might be kind of a big deal.
I agree, especially that he's already on the 40. Like he's going to, I agree. I would be taking the over, 1.5 spot starts or whatever it may be. And you
For
hope
sure.
not, but I agree. I think it's a guy that's going to end up, part of the reason why I put him at 11 is one of the guys that there's not really very many other options in this range of arms that are guaranteed almost to get some big league action this coming season or, in the next year or so. And if not, like if you DFA him because you really need the 40 spot, someone's claiming him. So
Yes.
that's where I kind of figured he's got to be right on that outside looking in of the top 10. We're going to get to the top 10 in a moment here. Before that, our first break. All right, now we get to a little bit more like zip, a little bit more stuff, some sharpness, and that's Matthew Fisher. Fisher was the guy that they were focused on in the 2025 class in terms of, some of the savings with these college arms that are funky and relief risk and whatever, and see if you can find a market inefficiency. That was so you can get Matthew Fisher in the 7th round for $1.25 million, which, by the way, is the record for the Phillies in the 7th round. It's a very niche thing to say, but they've not gone to give a guy $1.25 million in the 7th round. He also was the 2nd largest bonus of the 2025 class, which is a lot more important. And I think says a lot more, but 6'3", 200 pounds, really good athlete, 2-sport guy. I think he accounted for like 40 plus touchdowns in his high school senior year as a quarterback. A good template to build on. Above average heater plus sweeper. That thing's nasty. Then he has a slider separate from it that is a little bit sporadic, but flashes above average. Then a changeup that's a work in progress. You can tell that he's a multi-sport guy. Like he's still like finding the more consistent feel for things, but this is a really exciting template, I think, for the Phillies to build on. 6'3", 200 pounds. And I think for them, this was their upside play behind Gage Wood.
Got you. Matthew Fisher, let's see. Yeah, football standout. I can't find any like offers or anything like that. I know he was an IU commit for baseball. But Matthew Fisher, this is like, based on what I just read through and what I read through this morning, very physical person that happens to have like all of these natural gifts. And it's just a matter of everything kind of coming together over the course of 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe quicker because he's so athletic. I'm excited to see how the command develops. It's also a cut ride fastball that, seeing the swing reactions from hitters, this is one of those cut ride fastballs that's just going to have hitters uncomfortable. At the top, it's got that ride to get swing and miss. But when he starts to cut it a little bit more sometimes to the glove side, and it's a righty, let's say, like they're waving at it. Like it's almost acting like a mini slider away from them at times. With lefties, he could backdoor it. He could tie them up. So this fastball, I wouldn't be surprised if it turns into a plus heater, and especially if he can learn how to weaponize it in different ways, because when he is staying more linear, it does have that ride at the top. When he is going more east-west, it does have that more horizontal action to it that I think can be really difficult for hitters. That same supination bias is what makes his sweeper really effective, and I think what will make his slider effective as well. And we'll probably limit him from being able to throw a good changeup. So it's going to be like fastball, sweeper, slider. But some of these guys with the supination bias, they can use the seam shifted wake to be able to learn a sinker really quickly. Others can't. Waldrop could. We'll see. So if that's something that allows him to find that sinker too, it's a really complete arsenal. And this could be a guy that's like rising through this system very quickly and already is one of their higher upside arms, but could be, that next wave of really exciting pitching talent.
Love it.
Number 9. This is a guy that's in a similar position where I think when healthy, when he comes back, could lead that next wave. Moises Chace. I think he's become a little forgotten here. And he was acquired from the Orioles back in 24 in the Gregory Soto deal. This fastball is ridiculous, man. Like it is a really, really good fastball. And it depends on what it's going to look like when he comes back. I think Chace was throwing through whatever it was, like before he needed to undergo Tommy John and the early point of the 2025 season. I think he was trying to throw through it because his velocity was way down. He was averaging about 91 miles per hour on his fastball. In 2024, he was averaging 94.5, and over his final 10 starts, he was averaging 95. And in watching those final 10 starts of the 2024 season, his fastball specs were crazy, like crazy. We're seeing fastballs get 20 plus inches of induced vertical break from a 5.5 foot release height with above average extension. I mean, like, that's some of the individual fastballs he was throwing were clear, like 70 plus grade fastballs. The question just is he going to have the same arm angle when he comes back? Is he going to replicate the same ability to spin it? Is he going to extend the same way? Like, there's all these different questions, but I can tell you definitively over the final 10 starts, that was a 70 heater. I just don't know what it's going to look like. And it wasn't fully like that at the start of the season too. Something really clicked down the stretch, especially after he was traded and joined the Phillies org, but we just don't know exactly what that'll look like when he comes back. But then the sweeper looks good. The changeup off of that looks fantastic as well. Just the tunnel that he creates. And I still think this is a guy that, if it all goes right, can be a middle rotation starter. It's a wait and see, because we're not even going to see him until the middle of 26.
Right. And the thing is, like, time is on his side. He's got plenty of time. He's 22 years old, doesn't turn 23 until early June of this year. The interesting thing that jumps out to me, he hasn't eclipsed 80 innings in a season. Or sorry, he got to 80 and a third in 2024. Are we running out of time to build him up as like a starting pitcher when he comes back? Or is he going to be one of those 5 and dive guys with the opportunity to do a little bit more?
That's where it's interesting. And I think that's the big, and that's why I got stuck on 45 future value. I oscillated, I was like 45 plus, like if he was healthy and doing what he did in the final 10 starts, like into the first half of this past year,
and
I would have said maybe
he can eat some innings. You were probably at 45 plus.
Exactly. So I think, well, I like the floor, because I think with that fastball, he can just go up there and just rip them. Like, and with the carry that he generates from such a low release point, and then having 2 secondaries off of it, I think he's going to be effective. But to that point, like, that's why I don't think he needs to 5 and dive it. It's health dependent, and that is what I don't know. And to your point on the innings, they clearly were, and there must have been some concern, because we would think, remember when the trade went down, we're like, why move Chace in that deal? Like, Chace is really emerging and looks really good. There must have been some injury concerns in general, because you look at his usage in 23, rarely ever went more than 4 innings. You look at his usage in 24, to your point, rarely ever went more than 4 innings until after the trade, actually. Like, the Orioles did not really have him go more than 4 innings in almost any of his outings, and never had him go more than 65 pitches. Then, and after the trade, he gets, over to Philly. He makes 2 starts in Jersey Shore, and first start, he throws 65 pitches. By the second start in the Phillies org, he's throwing 86 pitches. He had never done that in his professional career. He had never thrown 80 pitches. The Phillies said, let's go. Let's take the training wheels off. And I'm not blaming, like, it could be just coincidence, obviously, but training wheels come off, and he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight starts of 80 plus pitches to 89. But here's the thing. He absolutely dominated, and he held his velocity. Like, when the Phillies said training wheels off, let's go, in those 5 starts, 4 of them in Double-A, he threw 24 and 2/3 innings and struck out 42. He averaged 95 on the fastball. So he clearly was looking and feeling free and easy. And if that was what pushed him over the edge of needing to get TJ, something else would have anyways. Maybe it was a necessary evil, but we saw what an unleashed and confident Moises Chace looked like there. So if he can come back and maybe feel even more emboldened and healthy and sturdy with his arm, he could be a guy that skyrockets into the top 100. I wouldn't even rule it out. By the way, 10 and 13 strikeouts in back-to-back outings against Binghamton and Somerset to wind down the season before struggling against Erie. If he's healthy, I really think this is a guy that could be a strong number 4, because you get that sweeper at above average, the changeup potentially plus, and the cutter as a decent bridge 4th offering. I still think this guy can be a dude.
Love it.
Number 8, Dante Nori. Usually these types of players are easy to assess. Nori is a little bit difficult, because the bat to ball is good, maybe plus. The plate discipline's plus. He's a plus runner. I see 70 grades on the run times. I think it's 60. We saw him in the AFL. We just have access to like sprint speed data, like feet per second data. It's 60. If it was 70, that would definitely help. The routes are a work in progress in the outfield, but he's just an athlete, and he still has a closing speed, and I think he's going to be an above average center fielder. It's right now, bottom of the scale power. My
Yeah.
concern is that the bat speed is just not great. And could that catch up to him against more consistently higher velocity and just better stuff? And I don't love the operation, even though it's simple. He starts with the bat just kind of resting above his shoulder, and his load doesn't really create any separation. Like his stride just pushes him forward, and his hands just kind of go up. So there's not really any tension or counter move, and it just kind of feels like he's almost playing fungo sometimes, where it's just stride pushes forward, hands don't really go anywhere, and then we just go. And I think that's why it's hard for me to assess his bat speed, because I think there's more to unlock there. I really do. And he's this kind of muscle hamster that doesn't have more room for strength. So you limit him. But I'm telling you, like, he's swinging from a point of, like, if you just had your hands, like, slack is the word I'd use. Like, there's a lot of slack. And when there's slack like that, it just sometimes looks like you're swinging a heavy bat. And if he could gain even a little bit more, I think that would push him to that, 45 plus future value, 50 future value, where you can say, hey, this could be an average center fielder. But right now, I just don't know if there's enough bat speed there yet. And so I'm a little bit conflicted.
We published a chat with him during the Arizona Fall League. Number one, really enjoyed talking to him. He was a very fun conversation, like, good dude. He, like, shaking his hand, just kind of being around him. He's a small but strong guy. And it seems like he hits like a small guy and not that small but strong guy, because there are a lot of small but strong guys that kind of outperform their frame offensively. And he is playing like a small outfielder right now instead of that strong power pack guy. And maybe it's a swing change, to your point. Like, it just a matter of getting to tension a little bit better, right?
Yeah. Well, I think about like a Jacob Marcy.
Yes.
And you see the way that, like, again, you don't want to get too distance, right? Where your hands get stuck behind you and you're too
But he
stiff.
figured out how to create pressure, and, like,
Yes.
I have to release, I have to go.
And it's like the rubber band effect, right?
Yeah.
And when you just have, not all guys need that, but everyone needs it to a degree. And even if it doesn't look like it, they've got it, whether it's like in their scap or, in their back hip, like they're cueing something to feel that tension and separation. And Nori, when you watch him swing, he just doesn't. And I think the biggest indicator of that is usually if there is a cliff dive against secondary stuff. Because think about it, if you don't really have the tension already, you're already releasing whatever you had behind you when you're remotely fooled. And when I look at his hard hit rate against fastballs, 43%. That's great. Like, because he's staying back and whatever he's got behind him, he's still going with. His hard hit rate against all other offerings is 20% this past year. EV90 of 98 miles per hour against all other offerings. Because if you have no tension, if you have no counter move, it's a push forward. And if you're already starting to go, you got to slow yourself down even more. And you just got nothing behind you. So that could be unlocked. He's 21 years old. He's going to be 21 for the entirety of the season. But there's going to need to be a little bit of a mechanical shift. That said, the floor is so high because he's going to be an above average defender. He's a plus runner. The plate discipline is going to be plus. And the bat to ball is going to be solid. But there's a lot of pressure to properly spray the ball around the yard, and that's a tough way to succeed if you don't unlock a little bit more power. But if he gets to that 35 grade power, I think that helps. And it also really helps that he hits lefties very well. He's great in left-on-left matchups. Yeah. A guy who's not great in left-on-left matchups, but absolutely crushes righties, Gabriel Rincones Jr.
What a stray of a transition. Let's get that out of the way. Like, that was a mean transition.
It couldn't be more ridiculously like the opposite, left on left, dude. It's nuts. I think he hit a $105 against lefties, but I'm not here to disparage an FAU Owl. Just wanted to make it clear. This is an FAU Owl down here from South Florida. Gabriel Rincones hits the living crap out of the baseball, and he should never see a lefty, maybe as long as he lives at the big league level. But I think he will live a long time at the big league level. Like, he's got it. And by it, it's just, he's explosive. There's some swings that he got off where you just see, like, it's a pitch down and he goes down with it with the lower half and can sink and still get off this just ridiculously violent swing. It's foul pole to foul pole, but when he gets to the pull side, it's maybe plus raw power that he can showcase. The approach is improved drastically. The defense is improved to the point where he can be average in a corner with an above average arm. And I think the most underrated part with Rincones is, my guy's a 45 grade runner at best. He's going to get his bags, baby. And he's gotten them every single year. EV90 of 109 miles per hour is big league plus. It's big league plus and a half, really, and maybe plus. Hard hit rate of 49%. Against righties, he had an 873 OPS this past season. Again, I'll give you the slash line against lefties. 107, 215, 107. That's a 323 OPS. That's fine. Bulk platoon this guy. He's going to draw his walks. He's going to hit the living crap out of the ball. He's elevating more than ever. And he's going to sneak in some bags too. My favorite part is that he cut his strikeout rate to the lowest of his career. He raised his walk rate. And he did that at AAA this past year at 24. I don't know where he fits in because this is the one thing the Phillies don't really need is a left-handed hitting power corner outfielder. But, I'm looking at like what Max Kepler has done for the last few years. Why can't he be a better, version of Max Kepler that you maybe shelter from lefties? That's it. I think he could be pretty good trade bait too.
In his career, he left versus right. I'm going to give you the career slash for him in the minor leagues. And it's funny because the Phillies, they scrapped the everyday idea pretty much right away. When you look at the plate appearances that he's had over the course of his minor league career versus right-handed pitching versus left-handed pitching, it's drastic. He's had over 1,100 plate appearances against right-handed pitchers. Over 1,100. How many plate appearances against lefties do you think he's had? He's played, 4 minor league seasons?
It's how low is it going to be? It's going to be like 280?
208. He has 208 plate appearances.
Don't even bother, Gabe. Don't even bother, brother. Just go crush righties.
Just kill. But the career slash against righties, 260, 371, 470. The career slash against lefties, 173, 284, 240. So
that is pretty wild. We're talking home runs like 113 off the bat. Let me see what the max was this past year. He popped a 115 on a double off of my guy Harrison Cohen. Great guy. Just announced he's going to pitch for Team Israel.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's exciting in the WBC. Cohen also really good year, so it's a good guy to pop your max off of at 115. Rincones is a bulk platoon guy at the big league level. I have no doubt about that. Maybe not for a World Series team, but for I think a good team. This isn't like a second division bulk platoon guy. This is a bulk platoon guy for a pretty good team at the big league level. And again, I think sometimes I try not to put too much into the bags, especially for power guys. But if you're getting 15 to 20 a year with good success rates too, that's going to be a part of his game. And I think that helps. Number 6, Jack, I'm going to leave you the floor for Francisco Renteria. What do you got?
I'm actually going to go step out and grab a water.
Francisco Renteria. Okay, let me just map it out for you. By the way, watching some of the video. So he played in like the U15 world, like baseball World Cup, whatever you call it. He would there's this home run or this, I think it was a home run or a double. He hit off of this Guatemalan kid. And the kid was like 5'8", maybe. He looks like he's 13 years old. Francisco Renteria was every bit of 6'3", 215. I've never I have a screen grab I sent in the Discord. I was like, just look at the dichotomy here. This guy has been ahead of his years 4 years. He looks like a grown ass man. He's 6'3", 215. But the crazy part is he's a plus runner. He moves well in the box. He doesn't look stiff. And that's why the Phillies gave him $4 million. That was just tied for the second highest IFA bonus in this past J15 signing period. And I should put 2026 here. Renteria's swing. So he has this tendency to close himself off, and that kind of causes him to get crowded and cut his swing off on the inner half. But other than that, it's really simple. It's not a lot of moving parts. It's a simple stride. With 2 strikes, he goes no stride. His hands don't move very much. I think it's a very, very clean operation for a teenage power hitter that has not played professional baseball yet. So I really like the upside. Power speed combination that is tantalizing. And all these people love like Chris Rodriguez and the Tigers org. His bat is way ahead, in my opinion, of Chris Rodriguez's. And I think you're even getting maybe not quite the ridiculous EVs, but you're getting more speed and you're still potentially getting plus power from this kid. As someone that has a chance to maybe stick in center, but probably ends up sliding to a corner where he could be an above average, player in a corner.
I love it. Now for my 10 minutes on him.
It sounds good, right?
It does. It does sound good.
That's all I got though, but we'll have more on him. I think sounds like he's going to start in the DSL, but
cool.
given that he's a man among boys, I think he should make quick work of the DSL, especially because his swing, again, is pretty advanced. There's going to be whiff because he's just big and it can get long, but the mechanics being what they are, he'll be fine. I think especially at the DSL levels, he's going to crush there. We're going to get into the top 5, which starts with Gage Wood in a moment. Before that, one more quick break. All right, Wood is fun because the floor is elite leverage arm. I feel like not floor, but the floor is high leverage arm. The median outcome feels like really high quality leverage arm, and then the ceiling, of course, is him putting it all together to be this effective starter. Wood captivated the baseball world by throwing a 19 strikeout no-hitter in the College World Series. I do think that should not have inflated his value that much. As amazing of a story as Murray State was, the fact that he SEC pitcher absolutely throttled the Cinderella team. Like, I'm just curious. Like, do you think he's a first-round pick if he doesn't do that?
No, I don't think so at all.
I think that's silly. I do. I still think he's a first-round talent. But in terms of the process and what happened, I think it's a little silly.
It definitely is. What I will say is, like, there are plenty of teams and plenty of sports that fall into that. Of the most recent example is the best example. The best one that I always cite is Mitch McGary. The Thunder took him in the first round after he went on this crazy Final Four run for the University of Michigan. That guy was never a first round NBA talent, but they took him because he had an out-of-body experience in the tournament. I'm not saying that Gage Wood is Mitch McGary, because to your point, he was a first round caliber talent, but is he going at the end of the first round? Probably not.
I don't think so.
Like, obviously it has to matter. It totally has to matter. And it's what made Rhett Lauder a better draft prospect than Chase Dolander, right? Yeah. What he did in Omaha. But, like, it can't matter this much.
No, but what I do think it did is it put his fastball on display. And I think what it really did is it showcased a guy that it was like an audition in a way, where it was like, hey, this was a guy that was a reliever for a couple years in Arkansas, was also hurt at the start of the year, right? He had a little bit of a shoulder issue, nothing serious, but clearly because he came back and threw the way he did. But transitioned from the bullpen, then missed time with injury. He didn't get the full showcase that these other arms got. So then he has this opportunity on the big stage where everyone is watching with clear-cut data access, all that stuff. And these were good hitters still at Murray State, just looking completely overpowered by a fastball that they've never probably seen before. It's extremely, extremely, extremely flat VAA, like DeGrom type flat VAA. And then it was in the mid-90s. So it just created impossible angles for hitters in college. And so I think that's why he ended up being taken in the first round, is he got to finally show how special that fastball is. Then off of that, the curveball is sharp. Like, it's got big depth to it. He's got to find a little bit more consistency. And I think it's because of the big break, it can be difficult. And the big X factor here is going to be that slider. Can he find more consistency with it? And can it be that third pitch for him? And then, of course, if he could find the splitter, that would be awesome. But with Gage Wood, that fastball alone, he could be 80% fastball usage out of the bullpen in the 7th inning and just overwhelm hitters. This past season, it was a 34% zone whiff rate. And just to put that in perspective, like, hitters had a 66% zone contact rate against Gage Wood's fastball. It's insane. It's a 4-seam fastball. No one's supposed to have that much zone whiff. So that helps, and it's a really good starting point. Also, 70% strike rate helps on that fastball. So if you can find consistency with the curveball and slider, there's middle rotation upside here. But I still do ultimately think Wood ends up as a reliever. But that said, it could be as a legit closer. And doesn't Gage Wood just sound like a closer? It's the worst analysis I've ever given. But doesn't that?
No, it's a sick closer name. Gage Wood is a crazy good closer name. So he is the perfect person to kickstart this question. And his former teammate is another one that really helps, Gabe Gackle, who's probably going to be a first-round pick this coming year. I loved watching Gabe Gackle throw last year in the NCAA tournament, in the Supers, and then I think in Omaha as well. Wood was the clear-cut example and the thing that pushed him into the first round. And I want to bring Frankie Polari back on to kind of get his thought as an evaluator in a draft class. How many 25-inch fastballs have you seen clipped from fall camp and spring camp in college baseball right now? I just want to like figure out the way to properly calibrate a 30 fastball in college baseball. I don't think there's a good way to do it right now.
In terms of like
I see these guys putting up dummy numbers.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm just like, all right, how many 23-inch fastballs can we find? Like if all these kids are throwing 23-inch fastballs and like Iona has a kid throwing a 22-inch fastball at 97, he's not a first-round talent. It's the most frustrating thing about college pitcher evaluation for me right now.
And I think that's why, to that point, and you bring up an excellent point, that's why Wood, I think, really put on display his approach angle. And like, that's just something that's really hard to teach, where it's just flat out of the hand. The perception is just throws hitters off. And that is something that's going to translate, right? Like VAA is going to translate because that's not affected by the ball. It's just kind of how it looks out of the hand.
It's how you exist. Yeah.
So whereas there's guys that have mastered how to spin that college ball and just make it ride and dance, and then it's not going to do the same thing, professionally. And I think that's where Wood really solidified his value. But that fastball could be 70 grade, curveball could be 60 grade.
Yeah.
What do we have around that? And that's going to be the question as to whether he can reach that middle rotation potential. But I am excited to talk to Frankie about that, because my guess to that answer, and Frankie's more equipped to answer it, obviously, would be factoring in VAA and some of these other parts of the equation to project how that fastball is going to perform.
Sure.
Number 4, Aroon Escobar. A lot of buzz around this guy, because of the fact that he looked like he was on the cusp of a breakout in 24, gets hurt, then has this ridiculous start to the 25 season, slows down a little bit, at the high A level. But I also think it's important to note, Jersey Shore is not a fun place to hit, and that league in general is just not fun to hit in. You go to Brooklyn, where it's hurricane force winds blowing in at all times, and rides with lights flashing in your face. And then I don't know off the top of my head, what the rest of the ballparks, park factors are out there, but I know they're not great. Escobar was really solid last year. The thing is he's going to have to be really, really good offensively to be that everyday second baseman, but he has all the ingredients to be really, really good offensively, right? I mean, we're talking about a guy that, even though he's 5'9", 225, it's stocky. He probably needs to work on the conditioning a little bit. He's got this frame-defying pop, but I think the pop gets undersold. He can hit the ball hard. He can hit the ball in the air. I think he's got to improve. He tends to tip the barrel a little bit too much, so then it can make it a little bit difficult to get it back on plane. But when he does, it's natural ability to pull the ball hard in the air, and that's why he hit 15 homers this past year. The swing decisions are above average. The contact rates were above average. But again, I think the power is what gets undersold, because I think because of that barrel tip and everything, he's probably going to be closer to an average hitter. But if it's above average plate discipline, and then that power gets to closer to above average, he's going to be an everyday second baseman, even if it's 45 grade defense.
Got you. I'm trying to look at park factor right now in the not Midwest League. I'm looking for the South Atlantic League, right? Let's see. Park factor. It's okay. Like Brooklyn's a 77 by BA. Jersey Shore is a 76.
That's brutal.
Rome is a 32 park factor.
Holy crap.
Wilmington's a 61. This is crazy. But then you got like Greensboro, which is a 190. That might be the league of extremes. And we talk always about, the experimentation that happens in the Southern League at the AA level. The South Atlantic League might just be the wild, wild west of high A baseball.
And imagine like you're having this breakout year, and then you got to acclimate to high A competition. And then you also have to acclimate to like these graveyards. So, and then even then still put up above average numbers. It was like a 117 WRC plus up there. And then got a taste of AA at the end of the year, and finished strong there with a good 2 for 4, hit a triple. And the bat speed stands out. The simplicity of the path stands out. If he could tone down that barrel tip a little bit, again, I really think it would help him cover, secondaries and just velo at the top. But he handles fastballs pretty well anyways. It's more like the change ups and stuff, just kind of being in and out of the zone too quick. But I think he's that bat driven second baseman that, if it's 20 homers and above average on base skills, that's a pretty good player at second base. I'm trying to think of like a comp to that, who's hitting you 20, maybe give or take a couple each year, with fringy defense and above average plate, above average on base skills. Like I don't know if there's a great comp. It could be kind of Gleyber Torres-ish if it all works out. I don't know how Torres is graded out defensively, but I think that could be like what you can dream on a little bit there.
I love it.
We'll go to number 3. Sorry, scrolling too fast here. Number 3 is Justin Crawford, the player that we've talked about, breaks our brains. Whose brain does he not break? No one should put the ball on the ground as much as he does and succeed, but he does, and he succeeds. And, I think the big thing with Crawford, though, is you'd like the defense to be plus, and it's closer to just above average, but he's a plus runner. The plate discipline isn't good, but he hedges that by getting to everything. So that helps. But does getting to everything help you at the big league level? Like, do you want to roll over on a borderline pitch or a ball or two out on a 1-0 count? No. Yeah. I think that's kind of the question here. But he just turned 22 years old. He has not stopped hitting, as we talked about. Last year, 863 OPS. He hit 330. And the thing I keep holding on to was the way that he finished the year. He cut the ground ball rate from like 63% to 53% in his final 30 games, hits 4 homers, and hits 350 with a 930 OPS down that stretch. If he's a 53% ground ball rate guy, he's going to be really good. It's just like, can against better arms, does the 30-something percent chase rate and the egregious ground ball rate rear its head? I still lean towards maybe. Yeah. Yes, maybe. But at this point, with 70 wheels, with plus hit, with the ability to play above average center or a plus corner, he's got to be, a top 100 prospect until proven otherwise.
100%. I wonder how many weeks it takes in the major leagues for you to pivot from yes, maybe to, I don't know, let's find out. Give him a year. I feel like so many people are getting closer and closer and closer to that. And I know that you are too. Each level that he checked, each box that he checked, you're like, yeah, might as well just find out with the next one, right? And the only thing left for him to do is just try it in the big leagues and see if it bites him, and it may not. And there's a world where he's Carl. It would be so cool if Dave Dombrowski just found Carl Crawford 2.0 here. And there's a world that it happens for him.
He did look in the right place for Carl Crawford 2.0.
Yes. Literally the perfect place.
Average launch angle of 2 degrees is crazy.
Yeah.
But average exit velocity of 88 miles per hour with his contact rates are good. Christian Yelich's average launch angle was 2 degrees last year.
No, I did not know that. That's crazy.
So maybe it works.
And
right?
he doesn't hit the ball that hard.
No,
no.
Yelich was 90.5. Crawford's 88.2. But it is interesting.
Yeah.
It is interesting. So, you never know. And I think still, when you have the baseline that he has, and I just imagining him surrounded by the hitters he's going to be surrounded by in Philly, you get some good guys to help you get the ball in the air a little bit more.
Of course.
Have a little afternoon with Schwartz. Talk to him a little bit. You don't need to sell out there, but again, for him, it's a small adjustment. If that average launch angle goes from 2 degrees to 5 degrees, I think it makes a massive difference given everything else that Crawford has going for him.
I love it.
Number 2, Andrew Painter. Very difficult to assess, but I found myself frustrated with the discourse around Andrew Painter at this point. He has not been given a fair chance to fully prove that he is still one of the most talented pitching prospects in the game. And I think if you look at him as anything else other than that, you're selling him short. We talked about how long the layoff was, right? Because of initially trying to avoid TJ, then needing to get the TJ anyways, that compounded the time off, made it 2 years. And he missed all of the 2023 season, all of the 2024 season. And then this is the most important part. It's hard enough to come back from TJ after missing 2 years. So you miss more time than the average player coming back from TJ. Then it's, okay, welcome back, kid. Come throw with the baseball that throws every single pitching prospect off. The AAA ball, we talked about. Look at Trey Gibson. Look at Brandon Sproat last year. Look at Kendry Rojas. There's so many guys that their stuff just was different. It moves different. We've talked to guys about it on the show.
Yeah.
You got to recalibrate. He's already recalibrating himself. And then he's got to recalibrate with his baseball. There are 2 massive variables there. And then you have the variable of just AAA hitters, AAA strike zone, all these different things. And it's like, What the heck? He's not immediately Andrew Painter again.
Yeah.
He's also 21 years old on opening day. The 2022 Andrew Painter started the season in low A. So when he made this return as well, mind you, Andrew Painter had only thrown, I think it was 28 innings above high A.
Yeah.
So we're forgetting about that too. He went straight to AAA because Dave Dombrowski wanted him to be the answer, which I'm sorry. Dave Dombrowski, one, set him up for failure. Two, placed unrealistic expectations. And I think anybody in the Phillies beat will tell you that because he went into last year thinking Painter's going to help us. I appreciate the optimism. Painter can help us. Maybe would be the way to approach it. That was unfair expectations for your kid. And especially given the circumstances. Like, zoom out. He barely pitched above high A in his breakout year, didn't throw for 2 years. And then I'm fine with the AAA assignment, but I think the language around it too was, all right, kid, get back there and now prove that you can help us at the big league level. We're waiting.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that was fair. It should have been, find it again, get back to yourself, and you'll get your opportunity the second that you feel like Andrew Painter again.
And to push back a little bit, like that could have been the language behind closed doors, but it's a unique circumstance because they were looking at, maybe the most talented pitching prospect in the game last year. So they're sitting here saying, all right, when he was on the mound in the minor leagues before his 2 years off, he was so good. So I understand the idea of like not ruling it out that he was going to get there, but I'm with you in terms of the media presentation of Andrew Painter's 2025 expectations. It was the doors open for him to compete for a big league spot at some point this year. That doesn't mean that they were banking on it per se behind closed doors. They could have told him like, hey, take your time. If it doesn't work out this year, it doesn't work out this year. But it did seem like they were kind of framed that way. The expectations were kind of framed that way. This year, it's a totally different story. Like, he's probably going to be in the opening day rotation as it stands right now, unless they go and grab like a Gallen or somebody like that.
Yeah, I think going on record and saying Painter could make his debut in July, I don't know.
It's not awesome, but like what we appreciate most about Dave Dombrowski is he doesn't really toss BS around. And he doesn't hide anything from the media. He's a very media savvy lead decision maker.
And look, I think at the end of the day, he can't control how people take it and run. But I think this set up this expectation of like, if Painter's not immediately Painter, then something's wrong. And I just don't think anything's wrong. We'll see. But I think the most encouraging part was that Painter made his return and he threw 118 innings. He's never thrown that many innings. And I think that is a very encouraging part of this thing. The fastball averaged 97 miles per hour. The shape wasn't great. And I think that's something that's going to come back. But what happens with the AAA ball? Usually lose some vert. What happens when you come back off TJ? You're finding that feel to spin the ball out of your hand the same way. The cutter still looks like an effective pitch that I think could be even better as he locates more. Then you look at the entire arsenal. Splitter could be plus. You look at the curveball could be above average and the sweeper could be above average. We're talking about potentially 5 above average offerings here with the potential for above average command. Give the man a little bit of time here, and I think he's going to be a key part of. Now I think we can look at him and say he's going to be a rotation piece for them this year, and you can look forward to that. But I think with a little bit more time through the offseason too to work on whatever wasn't going right for him and build off of that, I think this is going to be a fun year for him. I really like the way the splitter looked through spurts. And I think he's continuing to gain confidence in those secondaries, and I'm hoping he's going to continue to throw them more. When you look at the scatter plot, it is so wide ranging. It's really nice to look at, and I think it's going to be something to build on, especially if you can get a little bit more vert on that fastball again.
For sure.
Number 1, not much suspense here. Aidan Miller, who's starting to get a lot of buzz in the industry with the way that he finished the year. Miller, look, the big thing with him, and I talked about it. I think I tweeted a highlight reel of his defensive plays. He's turned himself into an above average shortstop, and that's a huge wrinkle here. I mean, in the early going of his pro career, I thought he was a liability to move over to third base. And if he does move over to third base for Philly circumstances, it's going to be potentially plus defender there. Maybe same thing at second base. But he looks like an above average shortstop. That's the great news. On top of that, the plate discipline continued to be an asset for him. And he really just hit his stride and kicked into another gear. down in the second half. I don't know exactly what it was, whether there was some sort of cue for him. There wasn't a clear mechanical change, but through his first 60 games, he had a 703 OPS. Through his final 56 games, which is just the equal split there, he hit 300, 441, 512, and 953 OPS, 17.5% walk rate, 20% K rate for Aidan Miller. Maybe my favorite stat from the season is that if you combine four seamers and sinkers through that stretch of July 2nd onward, he hit 402 with an 1168 OPS. It's a 146 plate appearance sample of hitting over 400 against fastballs. And albeit that's at the double and triple A level. Ridiculous finish to the year, 17% chase rate, elite recognition of spin, pulls the ball in the air, 90th percentile EV of 106. He does have a little bit of that loud barrel tip too, so I think it can cause him to get jammed a little bit more frequently. Like he's flashing the top end EVs, hard hit rate of 43%, average exit velocity is there's a little bit of a gap between his average and his 90th because his 90th is plus, but his average is closer to above average. Sure. If he can more consistently get to those top end EVs, I mean, this is a guy that, I think is top 10 prospect in the game, maybe even without that, but could be, an all-star with that.
So interesting thing about Aidan Miller, I was just looking at the handedness splits, like how he does right versus left. And, the power production in terms of home run total, obviously it's more drastic. He'll hit more homers right on right as opposed to left-handed pitching because he just sees more of them. 21 of his 25 minor league homers in his career have come against right-handed pitching. But he actually slugs at a higher clip against left-handed pitching because he has this ability to find gaps against lefties for some reason. I don't know if it's an approach difference there or not, but the double total, the triple total on a per at bat, per plate appearance basis is higher against lefties than righties. So it's an even splits. There's no platoon disadvantage for Aidan Miller here. He just does it in a different way. He gets to a low 800s OPS in a different way against lefties as opposed to against righties.
Which is great. It's interesting. I think my guess on that would be, so his timing mechanism and his load, he really tips that barrel forward and then he snaps it from there. And so I think for stuff working in on him and harder stuff, I think the focus is on just turning it around and getting it to the pull side. But I'm imagining lefties kind of working away from him. It's more of that just kind of line drive result.
Just shoot it the other way.
Yeah, it's shooting it. Whereas with harder stuff in, he's able to just kind of turn it around and turn on it where it's usually fading away from him with lefties. The path isn't quite as long as it's going to be, kind of on stuff middle in, or at least going to be as long through the zone. But he still is so quick and with such good bat speed, he's able to just shoot it to the gaps. So that's a pretty nice asset to have that he can slug without doing that. I do wonder though, with that loud barrel tip, do they start to try to bust him inside? And I think that was what was happening a little bit. And he said, all right, well, let me just start it earlier. And I think that may have been the difference once he got to that point of hitting 400 against fastballs down the stretch was I'm just going to start this thing earlier. I'm going to be on time for that. I recognize spin great, so I'm going to be fine. And he does recognize spin well, but I think against the softer stuff from lefties and spin in general, it might be more of that kind of high quality B swing where he's shooting it to the gaps. But I think he's found that balance there. And you look at his numbers against sliders, they're not great, but it's not bad. It's a 715 OPS, but here's the thing. He's never going to chase him. It's a 17.5% chase rate. So you've got to execute it. And even then, he still does a pretty good job of putting bat on ball. The one area that I think is interesting is the changeups. Changeups, he has a 431 OPS against this past year. He was 3 for 39 against him. Small sample. But again, I think because of that barrel tip, when you tip like that, the top hand ends up getting a little bit too dominant and you go in and out of the zone. And so changeup fading away, it can kind of result in you pulling out of the zone, swinging over it, being in and out too quickly. That's the last piece. And David Wright had that barrel tip, but he was able to kind of stay inside of it and go the other way because he could recognize it. So that's that malleability that's really hard, but I think he has the ability to do. But the most important thing is if you crush fastballs and pull stuff in the air hard and you never chase, you're going to be good even if you have these pitches that you may struggle with. And I think that's the thing. But if he can clean up that path just a little bit more, maybe negate the barrel tip just a little bit, that's where I think the all-star ceiling comes out.
Yeah, and the good news for him is Ranger is in the other league now, Skugel's in the other league, and Sanchez is on his team already. So he doesn't have to deal with the 3 hardest lefty changeups that there are in the game.
Exactly, and that's such a specific thing. And again, even with the changeups, you got to execute. And how often are guys going to execute, a handful of change, 18% chase rate on changeups? Spot it then. If you spot it,
try
tip the
me.
cap.
Like the spotting changeup guy is on his team already. So
yeah,
good.
Exactly. So that's the thing, is he hedges his weaknesses and he leverages his strengths. And that's the way to be an above average regular for a long time. And then if you can get closer to eliminating your weakness, then that's where you become the all-star. And I think he can do that. The other part that's really underrated about his game, asset on the base paths. And I think that's huge for this Phillies team this coming year. I mean, he's grabbed like 50 bags in the regular season. He's not going to do that at the big league level, but he's a 30-plus bag threat and has become really good in that regard. It's really hard to poke a hole in his game.
Yeah.
That'll do it for the Phillies. We are going to probably do one more team top prospect list. We'll keep you posted on that, but the top 100 coming in the next week or two. We're going to probably do a live production fun thing around that, so keep an eye out for that. Reminder to follow us on the call up socials everywhere. We're now on TikTok as well, so posting some cool videos on that front, but also keep up with us on the Just Baseball site as well, because we'll keep you posted on when that top 100 is coming out. We're already giving some early info to people in the Discord, and you'll get an early look at that list. If you join the Discord, the link to join that is in the episode description. Final thought, Jack, where does the system rank for you? Not exact number. Is it like still middle of the pack?
It's middle of the pack. I will say that I think it pushes towards the top half of baseball because of the intrigue on the mound in the 9 to 15 range. Guys like Obermuller, like that is an exciting thing. And for me, I would much prefer that he is the 13th or 14th ranked prospect as opposed to just a lower level second baseman that happened to hit 280.
Exactly. And I think that was the clear plan in this past draft with the Phillies. Enjoy your weekend. Look forward to talking prospects with you next week.